Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of artificial intelligence, AI, and what that means for technology. I'm very excited about my two guests on this podcast. First, we'll be talking with Patrick Charlton, the director and co-founder of BuzzRadar. Next, we'll have CTA's very own Steve Koenig, our analyst, back in the studio to talk about what upcoming trends we can expect to see in the AI space. Enjoy! Visit jpmorgan.com for the latest thinking on how JP Morgan is using machine learning and artificial intelligence to inform investment decisions and insights. Data sets are key for any research and trading strategy, and with more data than ever coming from social media, credit and debit card transactions, and even satellite imagery, artificial intelligence can help to reveal complex patterns or trends on where the economy is headed. When JP Morgan looks at massive collections of data, they're looking for trends or patterns that might not be detected otherwise. This analysis could help customers, policymakers, businesses, and other leaders make smarter decisions. Please visit jpmorgan.com for more information. Welcome to CES Tech Talk. I'm Jeff Joseph, your host. I'm the Senior Vice President of Communications and Strategic Relationships with the Consumer Technology Association, CTA. For those of you who don't know us, CTA is the owner and producer of CES, the global event for innovation, coming up in just a short few weeks, January 9th through 12th in Las Vegas, Nevada. Hope to see you there, hear you there. I hope you'll also subscribe to this podcast series where you can learn more about what we expect to see at CES and why it is the greatest show on earth. Today, we're talking about artificial intelligence, AI, and I'm so pleased to be joined by Patrick Charlton. Patrick is a social marketing and digital specialist with a track record of creating a wide range of award-winning campaigns and projects for some of the world's most exciting and biggest brands. He's the co-founder of BuzzRadar, which is an industry leader in capturing and visualizing real-time data and making live data of all types easy to understand and making it shareable. He works with some of the world's largest events, brands, and retailers, including Twitter, Samsung, Nike, Google, Intel, and of course, CES. In this role, he helps them and us create a culture of listening and marketing in the moment. Over his career, Patrick has led major groundbreaking projects on multiple global social engagement campaigns, providing leadership, strategy, production savvy, and creative direction with an online audience reaching the tens of millions. So with that, let me welcome to CES Tech Talk, Patrick Charlton. Patrick, welcome to our show.
Hello. Hello. You've made me sound way too good there, but thank you.
That's part of my job. I'm happy to do it because it's well-deserved more than anything.
Well, we'll see, won't we? Thank you.
You've had a good track record, let's put it that way.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Well, let's continue with that. So let's start by just talking a little bit about BuzzRadar. What's the mission and how did you get started? Did you see a specific need you're trying to address? What's the genesis?
So I was sat in an agency in London right at the beginning of sort of the social media marketing revolution. And we were doing lots of really great campaigns. And I was lucky enough to help lead up a lot of the first campaigns for Nokia and then Skype. And it was a really cool time. We got to do lots and lots of really great stuff. And then there was a very big question over the value of social media at the time, and people were like, well, how do you value this? What's the ROI? And so we hired a bunch of analysts, and we bought a bunch of tools, and we started tracking everything and really trying to understand what was going on. And we were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year tracking everything, and we'd end up with these enormous reports that we'd have to give to the clients, and I'd go off to the CMO and show them this report. It's about 30, 40 pages long, and they'd look at me and they go, you know what? Just show me the last 2 pages. I just want the executive summary. Tell me what to do next. And I was like, but we just spent 3 weeks building this for you.
We have all this great data,
and so BuzzRadar came out of the realization that data is so important to get fast now, and you need to get insights quickly. Especially when you're looking at paid media and PR and social data, you've got to be able to act super quickly. And putting things on paper and then sort of filing them through PowerPoint and email is just not fast enough anymore. So, the mission of BuzzRadar became, how do we build something where we just take the core insights, the really important stuff, to each individual organization and then each individual department and each individual inside that organization and go, these are the top 5 things that you need to know right now. And when they change, you'll get an alert and you'll find stuff out. Because people, talk about data a lot, but the way that they interact with that data is wildly different. You have people who have no real grasp of insights until you show them a really pretty infographic, mm-hmm. and then you have the other side of the meter where you're looking at people who are just poring over spreadsheets and Tableau and all those different platforms, and they're super data hungry. So how do we cater to a wide audience inside the organization, not just the analyst?
And so that's including. So it's not that you're jettisoning those sort of detailed multi-page reports. You can still provide that level of data, but for those who just want the top line, who want a quick snapshot, you're able to distill that down to the real key findings.
Yeah, providing lots and lots of data is relatively easy. It's how do you decide what's important, and how do you gain actionable insight out of that?
And actionable insights. That's great. So when we talk about data visualization, that's what you're providing. That's that sort of top line key insights.
Yeah, and we've moved into machine learning and AI purely, because we need new ways over and above data visualization to be able to share key insights to people. So, using machine learning, we're starting to understand what's important and what's not, and we can train, an AI to understand what's really important, and then make it super easy. So it might be a bot sat on Slack that tells you what's going on rather than the data visualization, or it might be an email, that's understood a pattern or detected something, a prediction, that can shoot it to you in a push notification on your mobile. So it's all about trying to get the right data to the right person at the right moment. They can go do something about it.
Yeah, and in the right, most usable format. That's. I don't want you to give up anything proprietary, but can you give a more specific example so our audience can really understand what that might look like?
Okay, so let's take
no pressure.
Let's take an example. No, let's take an example, and I'll back this back. There might be an occurrence where, I don't know, there's a major announcement. So let's say, for example, there's a big event and an apparel manufacturer brings out, licensed clothing for this big event. And the pricing of that apparel is way too high. And when they announce the pricing, a key influencer starts complaining about that pricing. Mm. So, what we're able to do is detect that pattern, and then basically be able to alert, an influencer marketing agency working for the brand, so they can then go and address that influencer and talk to them to help, alleviate that detraction and turn it into a positive thing as quickly as possible. So that might be a ping on Slack. So it might be us using IBM Watson to detect that pattern, send an alert through to their Slack channel, through to our Tombot, and then basically say, oh, this is happening. Do you want to learn more, or do you want to do something else with it? And the next stage that we're working on at the moment is providing recommendations. So not just alerting people, but using the bot trained by thousands of hours of decision making from agencies to make a recommendation. So we're really now working very hard in AI training to try and provide recommendations that are useful. And that's really the next frontier of where we're going with things.
It's fascinating. We'll come back in a minute to the job displacement. There may be some anxious marketers out there who are concerned about this development. It's fascinating. You've talked a lot in the last few minutes about your use of AI to help inform collect all this data and do a better job of reporting and collecting it. Can you give us other examples of how you're integrating artificial intelligence throughout your work?
Yeah, certainly. So, one of the things is that, 5-10 years ago, sentiment analysis was 75% accurate, maybe. and it was very arbitrary the way it understood. Now, with machine learning becoming not just better, but certainly more accessible, and you've got teams like IBM and Google offering sort of super accessible machine learning algorithms, and then a whole bunch of open source stuff available as well. What we're able to do is create learning sentiment engines that operate in multiple languages, but also understand a category really well. So, for example, I might be a car manufacturer, and I might be talking about cars. And when people say, "Oh, my engine is sick on my car," we know that that's a bad thing, and that's something we want to address. Whereas if we're a trainer manufacturer and someone's saying, "Oh, those trainers are sick," that's a really positive thing. Mm-hmm. So, what machine learning is able to do now is understand context much, much better than it used to be able to.
That's incredibly exciting. I know one of the challenges in AI is that exactly that, sort of picking up context and sentiment. We're talking in another session about robotics and the use of AI in robotics, and being able to respond, not only pick up context through language, but context through facial expressions and through nonverbal communications. Are you seeing advancements in that area that may inform this as well?
Yes, so both IBM and Google have got amazing visual analytics tools that are still pretty nascent, but able to be adopted on a wide scale now. So, for example, I can look at every Instagram image that comes through CES, and I can define, what's inside that image. Is it a car? Is it a booth? Is it a person? And then we can also look at, how happy that person is in that photo. What we're able to do now is deal with those things in scale, and the adoption and integration of that technology into our platform is much faster than it used to be. So whereas that would have taken a small company like us years to develop, we can now plug that in a matter of weeks.
I'm offering this to your clients. It's an amazing development. You received, as I was researching for this, you received a lot of buzz for your emotionally responsive billboard at Cane Leon. Can you talk about that? What was that emotionally responsive billboard, and how does that fit into AI and the sentiment analysis?
So one of the things we were looking at, and when we talk to different advertising agencies, they're saying, well, it's really good that you can tell whether something's positive or negative, right. And that's great. But how do we go beyond that? How do we understand emotions? So we need to understand whether people trust us, or we need to understand whether this piece of creative that we've created is exciting people, or does this make people inspire people to be innovative, or different things. So what we've done is work with IBM using an AI called Personality Insights, which is basically best described as an AI that's a psychologist. So you can give it a bunch of unstructured data. It might be a speech, or it might be, in the case that we used it with, which was a whole bunch of tweets. And it will decide the top emotions that are being used inside of those tweets. So then what we did was we used that technology. So we were pushing real-time Twitter data through Personality Insights, and then we're scanning all the emotions. And then what we did was tag each individual emotion to a creative. So, for example, we could have had a sports. I'm not going to use brand names here because I get in trouble. Mm-hmm. But we've got a sports brand that are all about excitement. So they basically bought the excitement emotion, and so every time excitement was triggered by the data in Twitter, their advert flashed up on the billboard.
I'm pausing because I'm stunned. That's absolutely amazing. So we've moved beyond our earlier discussion about context and nonverbal, and now we're able to identify true emotion and really dig down deeper, and then serve up a responsive ad or whatever that interaction may be in a way that is directly responsive or related to that sentiment, that emotional sentiment.
Yeah, and one of the, this, again, all of this technology is fairly new and only a couple of years old. But what's really exciting is the machine learning that goes on, is because we're dealing with vast data sets, and now what we can do is train those. Whereas first they were quite clumsy, as the months and years progress, because we're training that with more and more data, the training is refining the accuracy, and that's really what's accelerating the development of AI and its usefulness. Is that sort of huge data set, the amount of training that we can do with it.
Yeah, and the more data that's available, the more context, the more situations, the better that learning becomes.
Absolutely.
That's really amazing. We also talk a lot about the sort of monitoring real-time social conversation visualization. That's a lot. That's a mouthful. Real-time social conversation visualization and the technology around that. I know that you've done some work in that area. Can you give us an example of what that looks like so our audience understands what it is?
So again, people are able to digest visual information, I think, 60,000 times faster than if they have to read it or if they're sort of spoken to. So what we've really spent a lot of time doing is saying, how do we visually represent, answers or insights in a way that people can understand? So no matter who they are, whether they're someone who's never looked at a data visualization, who stood, at CES for the first time looking at a data visualization, or if they are someone who's a very experienced analyst, how do we provide them with the same experience where they can instantly understand what they're looking at and gain some sort of insight from it, and hopefully be able to act on it if they need to. So that's really what we've done, and we're really excited about the work we're doing with CES at the moment around real-time data visualization, and some of the stuff we'll be unveiling with you guys is, I think, truly revolutionary and really exciting.
Oh, do tell. We're excited on our front. You've been a great partner. It's been very helpful for us from a communications perspective to be able to use some of those tools, be able to respond in real time, as we've seen some of the both the positive and some of the underlying concerns that come up. So we're very excited. But can you tease a little bit for an audience what that may look like, what we'll be looking for at CES 2018?
So what we're trying to do is imagine that every social interaction, every post that anyone made at any one time is in a big tube. There are thousands of tiny particles, and each of those particles is a tweet or an Instagram photo or a blog post. And what we've done is effectively cut that tube in half and expose all of those posts so you can see the whole of the universe of CES conversation at a glance in 3D. And I think that, certainly using a web browser, it's the first truly 3D real-time data visualization that anyone's built yet.
So 3D, walk us through the benefit of seeing it in the 3D visualization.
Well, essentially what we're able to do is really look at the depth of conversation. So rather than looking at 5 things on the screen, we can see 1,000 dots on the screen, and each one of those is an Instagram post, a Twitter post, a comment, and we're able to click on that and explode it and show it, and then we're able to sort those dots out in real time to look at sentiment or to look at influence, and or look at different group, and so that's really what we've been doing is effectively, boiling down each post to a single dot, and then manipulating all of those in real time based on different metrics.
I think the technical term is that's wicked cool. And as part of the machine learning, as part of this AI, will that tool also come with some of those actionable insights that we developed, that we discussed?
Yes. So we're using specially developed sentiment analysis. That's using what's a natural language that has been tailored specifically to CES's style of conversation. CES is a very unique event, and people talk about things in a very particular way. So, for example, we get a lot of product announcements, and it's very, very hard to derive sentiment out of product announcements. So what we've done is tweak the sentiment engine to look for very small hints inside of product announcements to see what's positive and what's negative. And for example, if it's just a repost of a press release, we'll disregard it. And what we'll look for is sentiment analysis inside of commenters. So we're really trying to understand the opinion and the waves of opinion rather than just what's been put out by press release.
Gotcha. And that, so it's not just the social media post by platform. You're able to dig down into some of the comments. To the example you just gave, if a press release is posted on a distribution site or there's an opportunity for comments, you're able to dig that and provide that visualization as well?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing.
I'm glad I'm understanding this. That is very cool. We're very excited about that. Well, yeah, I joked earlier about you're developing all these great tools and maybe displacing. There may be some nervous marketing professionals out there. We hear a lot of concerns about the role of automation and AI in taking jobs. In fact, we just saw a recent new study by McKinsey that estimates that automation will cost them 73 million jobs by 2030. In your field of work and from your perspective on the way you've been able to integrate AI, are these fears legitimate? Are we all in danger of losing our cushy marketing and PR jobs to AI?
No, I mean, it's a very difficult thing to look into the future and see what's happening. But all I can give you is our perspective, and that is that AI and machine learning is generally very good at doing one task. Humans are very good at doing multiple tasks. I think if you have a job where you only do one thing and you do it over and over and over and over and over again, then you would be worried. If you're a person whose job involves problem solving, then it's going to be many, many years until there is an AI that can understand multiple tasks. And so this idea of a fully autonomous robot that can, has consciousness is very, very far away. So when it comes to marketers, and we've seen it before when email came along. They said every messenger boy would be completely redundant, and there were giant typist pools of people. When the computer came along, that were going to be made, redundant. They shifted into new roles, and one of the things that we're going to have to do is train AIs, and that is an enormous task that is going to consume a huge amount of jobs. So that's one of the ways where people might not be doing the task that they used to do, but they might be training an AI to do it for a good long time. And then generally people move on into, so all the work that we're doing, and when people ask this question, people get very nervous. There's a lot of heavy lifting and people playing around with spreadsheets and moving data from in and out of spreadsheets. The AIs will take over. But what that allows them to do is free it up to do actual insights work, actual analytics, rather than the sort of mechanical work. They can do things that AIs can't do, which is really cognitive, imaginative leaps of understanding, where they can take lots of different concepts and understand them, and then provide a hunch. And that's something that AIs and machine learning is nowhere near good at as humans.
So these tools will help supplement our jobs, help make it easier. They're using the strength of machine learning and data analysis to do these. And they can think faster than we can, and looking at this wide swaths of data. But you still they'll just be a tool because you still need that human element to decipher what it means. And to your point, even creating new jobs in working with and developing this technology. That's.
I think that simply jobs will shift from one sort of role to another sort of role, and I think that certainly fears are generally, it's a very easy thing to sort of look at in sort of science fiction, and AI is a very scary thing, when you think of it in that term. But from our experience, AI is very good at doing one thing and one thing only, and then when you look at your job. Your job comprises of 20 or 30 different things, of which an AI might be good at 3 of them.
Right. Yes, I appreciate your insights. Well, we are here just hours, days, weeks away from CES. In this area of AI as it applies to data analysis and marketing, what advancements do you expect to see at CES? What should, as brand marketers arrive in Las Vegas on January 9th, what should they look for?
Well, I think, like I previously alluded to, AI tools and developers have been given access to tools in the last 12 months that they just really haven't had access to before. So I'm hoping to see, a lot more exciting stuff, especially on the consumer side. How, I'm looking at Google's Pixel 2 phone and how it can understand pictures on the fly, and really understanding the when you look at Alexa as well, how the consumer adoption of AI and all the innovative and interesting ways that people are building AIs into their products to make them more useful. And also from the marketer's point of view, the very clever way that companies like Amazon are basically co-opting the training data. So, for example, when you ask Alexa a question, that's a very useful piece of information for Amazon for a bunch of different reasons, not least to make Alexa better as well. So how are marketers going to use that AI data to improve their product offering and create whole new products as well?
Right, and help inform overall strategy. That's an excellent point. Before we let you go, you mentioned voice, you mentioned Alexa, and we expect that'll be, we'll see a lot of work around voice activated AI at CES 2018. Are you seeing voice play a role in the work that you're doing in assisting in brand marketers?
Oh, sorry. Yes, voice is going to be one of the key ways that people interact with data. Voice to text is, I think one of the most used APIs when you look at, all the various AI usage going around at the moment. That's a really big use case. And I think that, when people interact with things, I've seen it, my own usage of my phone. The voice interaction with my phone now is ubiquitous compared to 12 months ago. I think that it's difficult in open plan offices, and I wonder if it's going to change the structure of our offices, where they're less open plan now, because people need to ask questions and they want to process the data orally. So I think that certainly typing questions and natural language is the big first step. How much people use it in terms of voice and using their ears and their mouth to process data, that's going to be super interesting. I think from a consumer point of view, it's absolutely, it's a massive winner, and we're already seeing huge adoption rates of it. How it plays out in the workplace is going to be really interesting, because, you only have to look at the adoption of something like Slack to see that people really like typing things when they're in the workplace. So it'll be really interesting.
What we really like is just what we're used to, what we're accustomed to. We were talking in another segment about the integration of robots into consumers' lives, and that if you just dropped a robot into your household circa 2015, that'd be a jarring experience. But as you get used to voice activated speakers, as you get used to voice activation on your smartphones, as you get used to companion robots, when that combination comes in a few years, that you'll be more comfortable with it. Or even the integration of self-driving cars, as we become more comfortable with autonomous technology. By the time we get to fully automated cars, we'll be more accustomed to that. So I wonder in the workplace if it's that we're, not that we're not ready for that, but that it'll be a progression, that we'll eventually learn to move from manual input, from typing to voice, as it becomes more ubiquitous and more comfortable in other parts of our lives.
And better as well. And it's going to be super interesting to see how people adopt to the challenges of privacy and things like that as well. So I think, wireless headphones like the Bragi Dash Pro and things like that are going to become really powerful in the workplace.
Outstanding. Well, great insights. I could go on forever and ever, but we'll continue this conversation at CES 2018 coming up January 9th through 12th in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you for joining us today. My guest has been Patrick Charlton, who's the co-founder of Buzz Radar. Look for Buzz Radar at CES. Patrick, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
To learn more about CES, please visit ces.tech. And to learn more about CTA and some of the research we've done in AI and some of the other top trends we expect to see play out at CES, visit cta.tech. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a few words from our sponsor. JP Morgan is a leading global financial services firm that has extensive global technology, media, and communications research coverage. With 65 analysts covering more than 560 companies with a total market cap of about $72 trillion. Institutional Investors' annual survey of money managers once again placed JP Morgan #1 and named it the best American research firm. Hello, and welcome back to CES Tech Talk. I'm Jeff Joseph, your host. As we prepare to head into CES 2018, we're talking about some of the key trends that we'll see at the show, some of the most exciting innovations. And one of the things I'm looking forward to, well, you know, from Rosie the robot to HAL to R2-D2 to Bender to BB-8 and, well, replicants, we've long been fascinated and, frankly, sometimes frightened by intelligent robots. In the last few decades, we've seen tremendous advancements in robotics and artificial intelligence, AI. Robotic devices help build our cars and clean our houses, and soon, based on what we've seen at CES the past couple of years, you may soon have a personal robot to entertain your kids and even pour you a drink after a long day at work. In the same way, our lives are now surrounded and assisted by implementations of artificial intelligence. We use Siri to look up a football score? Well, that's AI. Ask Alexa to play your favorite songs from college? That's AI. And we're only at the beginning of the AI story. Because AI can analyze data and text more quickly than a human, some technologists say that artificial intelligence will give us a chance at addressing some of our most pressing challenges. AI may help us cure cancers, ease climate change, manage our bursting cities, and more. So what's next in our AI and robotic future? And are they the same? And what are we likely to see at CES that will help advance these rapidly emerging technologies and create new technology that we all soon will crave? Well, joining me today to answer all these questions and more is my friend Steve Koenig, the Senior Director of Market Research here at Consumer Technology Association, the producer of CES. Steve, welcome back to Tech Talk.
Thanks, Jeff. Great to be back with you.
We're glad to do it. The first question I have to ask, this is really you. I'm not talking to a replicant or a robot. You're actually sitting across from me.
I just pinched myself. I'm real.
All right. Well, I'll take your word for it, and we'll see how you do in some tests here. I don't have one of those cool machines from Blade Runner, but maybe we'll get one at CES this year.
Yeah, hopefully I can pass the Turing test.
There you go, the Turing test, exactly. Well, we talked about sort of joking about some of these movies, and you know we all have visions of AI, and robotics. But how do you define artificial intelligence? What is it, and what's the relationship between artificial intelligence and robotics? I think sometimes we talk about them as though they're the same. Are they?
Well, they're very different. And first off, you asked about, what is AI, and you're correct. In fact, you left out WALL-E, I think, in your list of
there's so many
of robotic AI entities.
We all have our faves.
Yeah, exactly. Mine has to be HAL 9000. Hello, Jeff.
That's the most creepy.
Yeah.
I'm more cuddly. I like R2-D2, BB-8.
Sure. Yeah, but HAL was one of those originals,
True.
but
True.
An very early vision. But AIs are essentially systems that learn to do things that we can't really program them to do. And this is where we get into deep learning, machine learning. Data to an AI is like experience to humans. So therefore, when you also consider the other aspect of AIs, neural networks that are computer systems that are organized much like the human brain, where we have different centers of thought in the cerebral cortex that process different bits of information, emotions, these kinds of things. Neural networks are distributed similarly. These systems can take in, as you alluded to, massive amounts of information very, very quickly. And so this is why just here in the 21st century, we can greatly benefit from these systems because most of us have trouble and struggle with just getting through the just flotilla of email in our inboxes every day. So just thinking about all the massive amounts of data that we are collecting, whether it's for marketing, whether it's sensor information in the context of a driver assist feature on a car today or more self-driving vehicles tomorrow, we've got to have help. And this is why AI is becoming more and more part of the narrative in consumer technology.
I'm fascinated by this concept of neural network. So as we move to this, we talk a lot about Uber connectivity and the Internet of Things, whatever you want to call it. How do those play together?
Well, so again, neural networks are these computer systems and various processing bits and things that are really organized much like the human brain. So taking different facets of analysis and computations and then synthesizing that together, and maybe it's a series of recommendations. And these are the systems that are working on really complex issues. And what we have today are there are really two types of AI out there. What we have today, and I think what we'll continue to see certainly at CES 2018, but more as we move through the next 3 to 5 years, more and more of the narrow variety. The other type of AI is a general AI, and that's where we get into like the HAL 9000, and that's according to a lot of the experts out there in this field, that's probably 10 years away before we have a general AI that is more like a sentient entity, virtual entity. Narrow AIs are doing things like you described, Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, but also are, I think when you reduce them down to their lowest common denominator, a series of complex algorithms that are mathematical expressions that can actually modulate themselves as new data is presented, and they take in new information, and that's where the intelligence comes in.
So as we think about sentient robots, they're not just these sort of humanoid devices that we see in these films that we've been joking about. What are other examples of maybe the use of AI and like, we'll come back to the robotics piece, but use of AI that we may see currently, or that you see right around the corner?
Well, sure. I think the most salient example of these narrow AIs we see today are these digital assistant personalities like Apple's Siri, Microsoft Cortana, Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant. These are probably the most familiar to listeners. In fact, I would say most of our listeners are probably using, maybe 2, maybe 3 of them on their phone in dedicated devices like the Amazon Echo, for example. So that there are many different vessels for these AI assistants, and our holiday research projects that we'll ship 4.4 million of these different vessels, these AI assistant vessels like Amazon Alexa. We call them smart speakers, because a lot of them are used for streaming music, like you mentioned in your intro. But this is I think the real core example today, but there are myriad examples operating behind the scenes that we're not aware of, that aren't necessarily tangible. And these are very simple forms of artificial intelligence that are automating different tasks. Maybe it's updating a database, or, a CRM or something. And this is the kind of thing that we expect to see more and more of, is AIs taking on a variety of different, call it menial tasks or routine tasks that we can probably very comfortably give up. And the AI is going to be able to do a more accurate job, a more expedient, speedier job. And that ameliorates the need for us to spend our time doing that. And that frees us up to do other things.
We're going to come back to that, freeing us for time and what tasks they may take away from us. In some ways, I guess we've been living with AI. AI powers databases like Amazon, right? Like, isn't that artificial intelligence in a sense, when it gives us a sense of what we may like based on our purchasing patterns? Is that
recommendation engines? Yes, which are really table stakes today, whether you're talking about shopping online or take your pick of video streaming services, that serve up, and in some cases, like on Netflix, you see like a percentage match for shows based on your viewing history. So,
and that's artificial intelligence.
That's a form of AI that's working behind the scenes to make that happen. So
we've been living with AI for a while. It's I like this idea of vessels. It's coming through in different vessels now. So we had sort of a tipping point. I mean, you may know the stats. I mean, we have shipped how many of these smart speakers? And if you add on Siri, we're surrounded by AI in a sense. So have we reached that tipping point and we're just not aware of it?
Well, I think so, because really I think the extent to which these digital assistants, these AIs that we were talking about, like Amazon Alexa or Siri, I mean, the smartphone is probably the foremost vessel for these things. And that's something that a lot of people are using. And they continue to improve. I mean, let's face it. I mean, the speech recognition, continues to improve. Their abilities continue to improve. And then we also have these dedicated, like Google Home Assistant, that can be present in the home. But I think that more and more we're starting to see these digital assistant AIs appear in vehicles. At CES, we saw a tie-up between Ford Motor Company and Amazon with putting Alexa into different Ford vehicles. So the example I like to use is if you run out of coffee in the morning on your drive to work, you can just simply order more from Alexa on your drive in while you're stopped at a stoplight, say, and then
Please be stopped at a stoplight.
Yeah, please be stopped. And then, by the time you get home with same-day shipping and so forth, you've got more coffee for the next morning. So very convenient, but also just being able to assist us and with different things. So it's not all about shopping.
Right.
It's not all about search. More and more, it's about command, control, and also, again, turning over different tasks, whether it's monitoring, making adjustments based on parameters that we prescribe, things of that nature.
So we talked about these vessels. We've got the smartphone. We've got smart speakers. Soon the cars. And so I guess robots could be another vessel.
Absolutely. And there's really interesting innovation happening here. The thumbnail on robotics and AI and that intersection is that I think AI is the key to bridging for robotics the transition between just simple task-based systems and more service orientation systems. And so we've seen examples like from our friends at LG with their AirBot that was almost like this kind of robotic concierge that can help with different things. So
wait, you can't skip over that. The robotic concierge. What sort of things can I get my robot Steve to do for me?
Well, in this case, yeah, and there's a lot more. It's just how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. But I think in this case, if memory serves, this is actually being used in Korea now in airports to help people with getting boarding passes and their travel information and details sorted. So almost like a mobile kiosk, if you like, but better than that, better to be more interactive and frankly mobile. So if you can't pick up these kiosks and move them down to the other end of the terminal if that's where the crowd is, but these systems can. But also in robotics, we're seeing just a real huge amount of activity in these companion robots. And this is like we got introduced to Mayfield Robotics Curry at Innovate Celebrate. And again, we saw Curry at our CES Unveiled New York event. What an amazing system. I mean, the use cases, they're still creating, they're still exploring, finding them. They range from, the routine to the novel. And one of the things that I think is very interesting is that Curry, as an example, that Mayfield Robotics talks about, is its ability to, with its camera eyes, capture those moments in everyday family life that we don't have time to pull out our smartphone to take a photo, but Curry, as kind of that family companion, can do that. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I think over time, coming back to the likes of Alexa and say Google Assistant, while we're having conversations with these AIs, my big question is at what point do those turn to relationships? And this is also where robotics intersects with this, thinking about these companion robots. What if another vessel for Alexa or Google Assistant is some form of companion robot that maybe looks like BB-8 or maybe looks like C-3PO? We don't know. We'll find out. I think there are going to be many form factors for these things. But the possibilities to benefit humans and society in general are just manifold. I mean, thinking about senior care and just someone there that can engage and keep say an older loved one engaged mentally. Those things for children. reading stories, kind of almost like a robotic digital playmate that has intelligence. This is why I say, at what point do these conversations turn to relationships? And these companions could almost be like an electronic pet.
Steve, before we close, what do you expect to see? What are you going to look for as sort of the next step forward in AI and robotics at CES? What do you hope to see?
Well, a couple of things really pertinent to AI that I think we'll hear more about, and that's what researchers and developers are working on now. And one is we have the speech recognition, the vocabulary, the grammar, the nuts and bolts of language, human language. AIs have got that. What they don't have right now, and what's being worked on, is conversations with context. What do I mean by that? Figures of speech, the emotional intonations of our language that we as humans instantly are able to identify and react to. So a lot of this adds up to the more contextual information that AIs will be able to read, if you like, from us. And I would also include, in a lot of cases, nonverbal communication. So being able to know if we're happy or sad, if we're tired, for example. This is one thing. Another thing is reducing bias in these AI systems, because remember, data is tantamount to experience. So if we're feeding an AI system a set of data, there's going to be inherent bias in that, because they're only learning from this data. So as they take on new information that changes things, well, how do we mitigate bias in these machine learning systems? And this is another thing that scientists, developers, and researchers are working on, and what it all adds up to is trust. Think in keeping of how we're going to be turning more tasks over and incorporating these AIs, we need to be able to trust them. And so what this leads up to is AIs being able to tell us why they're recommending thus and such, or how they came to this conclusion or this result. Whatever the case may be, if it's scientific research or if it's suggesting a movie to you. It's like, why did you suggest that to me? Well, here's why. So being able to explain that back to us is going to be more important in building trust and reducing bias. So those two things are some of the things I'm hoping to learn more at CES 2018.
That's fascinating. The bias thing was really particularly fascinating. The more experience, the more data. It's like self-driving vehicles, right? The more we test them on the road, the more experience they have, the better they are able to recognize some more specific situations.
Yeah, and potentially learn from other vehicle systems. So it's kind of this mesh network, if you like, of vehicles and all learning. And just coming back to touch on smart cities, I mean, you mentioned sensors. Yeah, these fixed infrastructure sensors, that's one source of data. The vehicles themselves would probably be another. And then the citizens themselves with their mobile devices through various apps or other things will it's all part of all this massive amounts of data that's coming in, and AIs are going to help us sort that.
Outstanding. Well, we look forward to seeing more at CES 2018 coming up January 9th through 12th in Las Vegas, Nevada. I hope to see you there. To learn more about CES, go to ces.tech and learn more about CTA and see some of the research that Steve and his team have done, including some research on self-driving vehicles and smart cities and AI and on and on and on. Visit cta.tech and please look for us at CES. Steve will be the one walking around with the robot that looks like R2-D2. I'll be the one with the robot that looks like Jada Pinkett Smith. I'm Jeff Joseph. I've been your host for CES Tech Talk. Steve, thanks for joining us. It's always such a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, and look forward to seeing you in Vegas. This has been CES Tech Talk. Visit jpmorgan.com for the latest thinking on how JP Morgan is using machine learning and artificial intelligence to inform investment decisions and insights. Data sets are key for any research and trading strategy, and with more data than ever coming from social media, credit and debit card transactions, and even satellite imagery, artificial intelligence can help to reveal complex patterns or trends on where the economy is headed. When JP Morgan looks at massive collections of data, they're looking for trends or patterns that might not be detected otherwise. This analysis can help customers, policymakers, businesses, and other leaders make smarter decisions. Please visit jpmorgan.com for more information. Thank you for listening to CES Tech Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can get more information on the CES show in January at ces.tech. Our show is produced by Tina Anthony, John Lindsay is our sound engineer. And me, I'm Jeff Joseph.